final panel session for today on the topic strengthening medical device regulation and pharmaceutical oversight in Africa through digital innovation. This panel would be a great opportunity to learn from experts who are at the forefront of their field on how digital innovation is transforming the regulation of medical devices and pharmaceuticals in Africa. So thank you for joining this session today. Our moderator for today is Tosi Ozoya, the principal consultant at Sarah Health Africa. So Tosi is a healthcare and business consultant with a background in pharmacy and extensive experience in health tech, supply chain management, and regulatory affairs. She has successfully led the implementation of donor-funded programs supported by the Gates Foundation and USAID, achieving significant results across multiple regions. Currently, she consults with organizations to implement technology solutions that enhance customer-facing operations and drive growth. So at Sarah Health Africa, which is an emerging player in the health tech space, Tosin is driving the development of innovative technology solutions, utilizing AI, machine learning, geolocation, and medical database to address critical gaps in emergency response and healthcare access. So thank you, Tosin. We're looking forward to this panel session. Tosin would introduce the other panelists and guide.
Thank you so much, Faida, for that introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. So without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce the topic and the panelists. So today we're talking about the role of digital innovations in strengthening medical device regulations and pharmaceutical oversight in Africa. And I'm truly honored to have a remarkable panel of people. Sorry. I'm truly honored to have a great group of panelists with me, with their diverse backgrounds and wealth of experience in healthcare, regulatory affairs, and digital innovations. So this session promises to be quite insightful as one thinks about the importance of regulating medical devices. I was thinking about it earlier today, and the implications of a poorly regulated device sector are dire when we think about very common ailments like hypertension. Imagine if your blood pressure monitor tells you that your blood pressure is high when it isn't, or you have malaria and the RDT tells you that you don't. There are dire consequences when medical devices are not well regulated. And today we're to discuss the role of digital innovations. What role can digital innovations play to improve that process, to improve the process of ensuring that only properly regulated devices are on the market, and striking the balance between that and allowing more and more innovations to be released into the market. So on the panel, I have a remarkable set of people. I'll be starting with my co-panelist Emil Malan, who is the MD at Vital Health. He's the managing director, and they're an emerging African-focused health product regulatory affairs consultancy. And he runs his own consultancy as well. He's an entrepreneur, a doctor, ex-pharma exec, and digital advocate, deeply motivated by personal convictions and his experience during intense suffering caused by the HIV epidemic in the early 2000s and exposure to overburdened local and international healthcare systems he has come across over the years. Emil is based in Johannesburg, South Africa, is a Desmond Tutu Fellow, and holds an MBCHB and MBA and postgraduate certificates in healthcare leadership. So, Emil, you're welcome. The next person I'll be introducing is Dr. Chekube Hope Ifeadi. Dr. Mrs. Chekube Hope Ifeadi, known as Dr. Hope, hails from Delta State, South Nigeria, and is happily married with children. She has over a decade of experience as an assistant director at NAFDAC, specializing in CGMP audits for pharmaceutical, veterinary products, medical devices, and food establishments, both locally and internationally. Her expertise includes regulatory compliance, advocacy, stakeholder engagement, and public health. Dr. Hope holds a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, a Master's in Veterinary Pharmacology, and is currently pursuing a PhD in Pharmacology and Toxicology at the University of Abuja. She's also a certified public speaker from the Emmanuel University, Raleigh, North Carolina. She's also a fellow at the International Institute of African Scholars located in the USA. So you can give them a wave, Dr. Hope, you're welcome. The next person here is Pam Oluchi Anuro. She's the visionary healthcare leader and a passionate advocate for global health and well-being with a robust educational background that includes a Bachelor of Pharmacy from the University of Uyo and postgraduate studies at the Nigerian University of Technology and Management. Oluchi combines academic excellence and practical expertise. Her dedication to lifelong learning is evident in her numerous certifications, including notably the Jim Leach Fellowship and Ashoka in Social Innovation in Health and Wellness. As the co-founder and CEO of Smart Farm, Oluchi has leveraged her extensive experience to drive innovative healthcare solutions. Her over 6 years of practice as a pharmacist has equipped her with a deep understanding of clinical practice, pharmaceutical management, and patient care. Under her leadership, Smart Farm is at the forefront of transforming healthcare products, ensuring better healthcare outcomes for patients. Oluchi's influence extends beyond her professional roles. She's a mentor and dynamic speaker who has shared her insights on health and wellness at numerous conferences and speaking engagements and on national television. She was a scientific speaker at the 4th Digital Health Summit in June 2024, where she presented her abstract on current status of interoperability in health information systems in Africa, which highlights her commitment to advancing digital health on the continent. So you're welcome, Fam Oluchi. And next we have Dr. Aisha Adeji. She is the CEO of HealthPort, a company using technology to optimize the last mile distribution of medical oxygen. She's a board certified family practitioner with a doctoral degree from Rutgers University in New Jersey, a certificate in social impact strategy from the University of Pennsylvania. She's a 2022 MIT solver with an experience in working with early to mid-stage US global health startups. In addition, Aisha has consulted with multiple global health companies implementing solutions in Nigeria and other parts of Africa, including UNICEF Innovation Lab. She actively participates in United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth, an organization that facilitates collective and meaningful participation for young people in official and formal avenues of policy design, implementation, monitoring, and advocacy. She serves as a UN Shot at Life Champion, advocating for access to global vaccination and preventable diseases. You can give a wave, Dr. Aisha, you're welcome. And we have Dr. Chimezie Anyakora. He's an accomplished healthcare professional with a wealth of experience in both clinical practice, healthcare innovation. As a leader of Bloom Health, he's dedicated to transforming health delivery by integrating technology and data-driven solutions to improve patient care and outcomes. With a background in medicine and a strong focus on health systems management, Dr. Nyakoro has worked across facets of health industry, from clinical roles to strategic leadership. He's been instrumental in driving healthcare reform and implementing health tech initiatives that streamline operations, reduce costs, and increase accessibility. Dr. Onyekoro's career is characterized by a passion for leveraging technology to solve complex health challenges. Under his leadership, Bloom has introduced innovative approaches that combine telemedicine, AI, and data analytics to improve both patient experiences, health service efficiency. His expertise extends to healthcare policy, advocacy, and operational management, making him a prominent figure in the pursuit of healthcare innovation and equity. I think I have one more. Hold on. I think that's about it. Yeah, so that's everyone on the panel. Thank you so much for being here. I guess we can move over to the questions now. So I have a question to start with. I'll be speaking with Emil, who will be, so Emil, here's a question for you. Just give me a second here. Yeah. So to start, we want to learn about the current status of medical device regulation and pharmaceutical oversight in Africa. Um, so, Emil, what can you give us a brief overview? What is the situation now with device regulation and oversight? What can you tell us about that?
Listen, thank you very much. And it's really a privilege to engage. Thank you for the organizers for getting us all together. The last 2 days has really been energizing. So we have a tough act in terms that we are last session. But as they say, the best is saved for last, right? So just secondly, before I dive in, apologies, time caught me. So I'm sitting in my teenage son's room, not my office. But there you go. That's how life turned out at this point in time. Maybe just to quickly contextualize those in the audience, a little bit about me so that they can just contextualize my responses as well. I think it's just worth noting. So I trained as a doctor. I worked in rural settings in South Africa during the HIV epidemic year. Um, I then sort of moved on to the UK. I practiced in the NHS in emergency care and then in general practice. And then I made a move towards big pharmaceuticals. So Pfizer, I spent 2, 3 years in Pfizer in the UK and then made my way back to Africa in 2013. Eventually, for 6 years, I was the African medical director for GlaxoSmithKline. So still in big pharma, traveled to around 14 of our beautiful countries across the region. And then, in essence, when GlaxoSmithKline radically changed their model for the continent, and actually it's a significant trend that the audience may be aware of in the industry, it's definitely one to understand. We, in essence, retrenched hundreds and hundreds of people, including ourselves, when they, in essence, decided to just work through distributors on the continent. So that then led me to find Vicor Health. Yes, currently providing services across 15, 16 African markets, mainly providing oversight of regulatory activities in the pharmaceutical space, medical device space, more and more, animal health as well. I've got teams sort of based in different places. But I'm just saying that because it basically contextualizes, I think, the fact that I've got a relatively broad sense. I'm not an expert, but I've definitely got quite a broad sense, and we're seeing quite a broad sense in terms of what's happening. I've consulted for leading innovators out of the US, developing omni-channel virtual nurses. We tried to commercialize that across the African region. We didn't succeed locally. We succeeded internationally, interestingly. And then I've consulted for companies that are innovating in the AI space, deploying imagery or AI on imagery, and in essence innovating in South Africa in the breast cancer space, combining point of care ultrasound and AI on imaging. So quite a broad sort of sense, but maybe before I then sort of dive in to give the audience sort of the information, for the lack of a better word, I think 4 key principles or concepts is important to grasp, which I will very quickly dwell on. So firstly, let's all just be reminded, I'm really inspired by the broad skills the participants and the presenters, but we are ultimately trying to solve um, within the healthcare system, right? So regulatory can almost say really speaks to the health products, the medical technologies that we want to introduce and maintain in our markets. But please, when we solve and when we get up each morning as passionate healthcare professionals and people, not necessarily healthcare professionals, putting their energy into solving for health. Um, let's just remember the ecosystem in which we are trying to solve, because sometimes, especially with digital as well, I see us coming with great ideas, but actually, if we just do something very basic elsewhere, we can probably make a radical difference in the lives of people, our families, our communities, etc., etc. Right? So health technologies are merely one of 6 important pillars in the healthcare system, right? I think the second point, to bring us a little bit closer to industry, there's some very, very arbitrary generalized data points. I mean, this conference focuses on medical devices and pharma. Pharmaceutical industry uh, probably exceeds and is probably 10 times the size of the medical device industry globally. So let's use that as a sort of something to keep at the back of our minds. And unfortunately, the reality is in the Africa region, I know a bit about the region, but let me talk about South Africa, where I'm based. Our market is 25 times smaller than the US market in its alone, right? So South Africa is considered a relatively significant pharma industry and medical device industry. But let's just bear in mind we are solving in a context where there's not so much global attention for certain stakeholders on our markets, in our markets, right? And that does add some nuances in terms of funding availability, attention we get, etc., etc. And obviously, we have got some more to deal with infectious disease, which outstrips by far what you see in other major economies, right? So that's just the second point. The second point is I'm going to be quite general in my talk, but let's just remember regulating medicines and medical devices have got similarities, but they are not the same, right? So in medicines, obviously, we follow clinical trial, clinical development pathways. There's a real strong emphasis on doing that, on the chemical composition of the innovation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In medical devices, many times the focus is on functionality, performance of the device, manufacturing in terms of that quality, the components working together. So again, I might be quite general, but there are some clear distinctions and differences, and our regulators need to be able to deal with that, right? And our healthcare systems, right? The two sort of healthcare commodities are not the same. So I think that's just important to acknowledge. Um, Finally, the last point I just want to make is the concept of maturity levels, because that will help when I share sort of the big picture, right? So thankfully, at least, I mean, I've got a, I mean, I think many of us live by the motto. One of our mottos might be, you cannot manage which you cannot measure. So thankfully, the World Health Organization has come up with a way to actually measure the maturity levels of our regulatory systems and regulators, right? Which I think is a critical principle and concept to understand within the context of trying to strengthen through digital innovation pertaining to this conference. But actually, we need to just be aware of it. You've got 4 maturity levels. Maturity level 1 is the lowest. In essence, a regulator functions and is at early stages of development. And then right up to level 4, where a regulator functions at a highly developed level and is continuously improving. They have systematically sort of built a organization that continuously improves and enhances how it regulates across the market, right? Now, the UN recognizes 54 countries in Africa. I've just used that as the reference. I think it's worth noting in Africa, we have not a single ML4 regulator in Africa, right? Across the continent. Sub-Saharan North Africa, we do not have an ML4, right? We've got, well, it's difficult when you look at the latest info. Say you've got between 6 and 8 level 3, maturity level 3 regulators. The bulk of our regulators are sitting at maturity level 2, roughly 45% at level 2, and roughly 40% at level 1, right? So we are trying to solve, and we need to solve for quite a diverse and segmented group of capabilities, right? Which does present an opportunity in itself, right? Because technology has moved on. There's the solutions of 10 years ago to get a maturity level 1 regulator to the next level. There are much better options now as well, right? So really, it's just quickly within this backdrop that I want to sort of then share to give you an overview and a general sense of where we are from a regulatory perspective. Look, I can talk for 2 days about this, right? So I'm going to keep it short. we are not where we want to be. It's immensely complex. Some would describe getting our regulatory frameworks to where it needs to be as quite a wicked problem. So to try and structure my feedback and insight, right? I just want the audience to quickly think about the pharma or medical device industry value chain, right? So on the far left, where it all starts, you've got lots of research and development going. Following that, you've got the manufacturing step in the value chain. Then you obviously need to think about registering, marketing, do the supply chain in terms of the industry. And then really the rubber starts to hit the road where it becomes sort of practical for distribution piece, the management, the healthcare system piece.
It looks like there's a
driving these
problem with your
technologies.
connection. Is
So, and in essence, I'm going to just frame my insights around specific components of the value chain, right? So where's our big pain points, right? I've already sketched and said that our regulatory systems are not mature enough. Whatever we can collectively do, let's get our maturity levels up. Let's harmonize through regional bodies, through local bodies, etc., like the Azibonas and the ECOWAS bodies, etc., etc. But where are some of the major pain points in terms of what we are seeing, right? So firstly, and I mentioned this and alluded to it right at the start, globally, the most innovative companies, I'm speaking globally now, are not paying attention to Africa. Why? Because unfortunately, we have economies that are subscale compared to other places. There's much more attractive margins to make. And let's face it, the majority of the pharma and medical device manufacturers are pure commercial organizations, right? Beautifully dressed up. There are some that are more altruistic than others, but these are commercial organizations commercializing globally, right? So that's the first point, right? We've got a bit of a challenge there introducing the most novel innovations in our region. From a manufacturing perspective, some of our major challenges as it pertains to regulation, right? Let's think about manufacturing. I would urge all of you, if you have not, and I'm not saying it's truth or gospel, but go and find a copy of Bottle of Lies, which basically paints a narrative of the generic medicines industry trying to commercialize within the US market, and basically some of the things and some of the themes that comes out of that book, right? Basically, it says that substandard medicines are potentially a very harsh reality in our region, right? And our regulators need to be able to solve for that.
sorry, Emil,
as do we as
just
healthcare
on time, so that we
professionals
have time
doing our
for
respective
everyone else.
things,
If you
right?
can try to wrap up.
Secondly, okay, I'll try and wrap up. So we've got some significant challenges on the manufacturing side. Happy to dive into that. On the registration side, I think my key thing would be there's good news. A lot of harmonization is taking place, Tosin. In terms of the African Medicines Agency, we really need to support collectively to see how do we get to a more unified view, right? We unfortunately do place some unique requirements on the manufacturers. That does limit, again, the ability for them to scale or to manufacture efficiently. Some of our markets are subscale, so it does present some realities in terms of and decisions in terms of whether they introduce a innovation into a Botswana or into a Namibia, which have got relatively small markets, right? Look, supply chain, significant challenges, parallel trade. We don't really embrace serialization. We've got quite a lot of cold chain challenges across our very diverse, de-urbanized, quite rural populations in some of our markets. We've got significant capacity issues at a dispensing level, prescribing level. 1 out of 10 patients, I believe, I can be corrected, in Nigeria get a prescribed medicine through a prescription, right?
Right,
How do you
Emil, thank you
regulate
so
within
much.
that
I don't
space?
know. Yeah.
We have significant challenges with counterfeiting, substandard medicines.
Thank you so much. That was quite
So let me stop there.
And I really like the point that you started with on ensuring that when we're thinking about digital innovations, we're thinking very practically. We're not simply saying, oh, they do this thing in the UK, let's do it here. But then we're thinking very practically about what is implementable here, what's practical to get done here. What do we have the manpower, the knowledge, and the resources for? Another thing that stood out to me was the fact that there's an existing framework for classifying a country to say, oh, this you're at this level or that level. I think one thought that I have to sort of frame this conversation so that we narrow it down on maybe on the country level or something so that we have a direction is I'd like to hear from Dr. Hope about maybe the Nigeria specific situation as most of us are here. What is the status of device regulation in Nigeria today? What can you tell us about that? Do devices come with a NAFDAC number? Do they have to apply like medicines? What is it really? It would be good to know to set the tone from there. Dr. Hope?
Okay. Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm so
sorry about your video.
My camera is not coming up. I've tried a couple of times. It's not really coming up. So, back to your question. Yeah, medical devices are imported. A lot of them are imported outside Nigeria. I don't think we have one company that is doing it locally at the moment, but all imported medical devices, we give them NAFDAC registration numbers, unless those that are coming through our porous borders, of which it's one challenge we face in NAFDAC, because a lot of times you go on a routine inspection, you start seeing some things, but when we check our database, those products we are not registered by us. So we have that problem. But a lot of the medical devices in Nigeria are imported.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I think I just wanted to clarify further on that point.
Okay.
Does being imported automatically qualify in Nigeria for registration?
Not at all.
Yes.
No, because when I did my presentation in the morning, I specifically talked about medical device and how we do the registration in Nigeria, because there are a couple of procedures you have to go through before your product is actually registered. I talked about when you apply, when you make your intentions known that you want to import this certain medical device or this medicinal product in Nigeria. In the morning, I talked about our e-registration platform, which of course had made it very easier for people to apply and get their certificates at a very shorter time, unlike what we have before, whereby we are using hard copies. But now it's easier. It's also easier for the importers to track their progress, the progress of their product registration. You understand? So we have an e-registration platform where you key in and you follow all other processes, because it's a whole lot of process. You are talking about your application, your document submission. We are talking about laboratory. We verify your documents. Then we go for the approval meetings. We have the sub-approval meeting, and we have the final approval meeting. So it's a whole lot of work. But all this is something that if you follow the procedure the way it is, the guidelines, for medical device, it is 90 days actually to get your registration done in Nigeria.
Okay, so on to the next question for you along those lines. So how do you think, as a player, as a regulator, I think your perspective is highly valuable. How can digital platforms streamline the approval process, or how are they? In what ways are you applying some digital technology to streamline the approval processes today? What are the challenges with what you're doing today, and how can we further apply digital innovations to solve them?
Okay, we have a lot of digital innovations in NAFDAC as it concerns registration of products. We have what I talked before, the e-registration platform, where you can key in and make your application. Even in the field, we have some other cutting edge technologies we use, like TrueScan, which we can use to detect counterfeit and or substandard medicines in the field. A couple of things we have done, because we are also interested in encouraging the local manufacturers. So a lot of policies, government policies have come on board whereby we try to encourage the local manufacturers, whereby we want the local people to grow, whereby we have the 5+5 policy, whereby it's just if you are an importing company into Nigeria, for example, you are importing medical device. So when we give you that first licensing, which is for 5 years, so when you import for the first 5 years, you're supposed to renew after 5 years. So when you come for your renewal, you are going to submit to us your blueprint to establish that company in Nigeria now. So in that way, we want to boost also the local production. So it won't be only people that are importing, and our local industries are not growing. So that is number one. Then also, when these medical devices are imported, our labs have gotten a lot of accreditations. Recently, we are operating on ISO 17225, where we certify vaccines, biologics, and medical devices. So our labs are very well equipped, as we have been certified by all these as required by WHO pre-qualification, which of course is another achievement of the agency in terms of assurance of medicine quality. We have a lot of other things we are doing, both in the media space, where there's been a lot of advocacy, a lot of training. The staffs are well trained, are well equipped, of course, to manage the e-registration platform. Now, then again, in terms of checking for substandard or counterfeit medical devices, we also have our ebook, which is also on the Apple Play Store, which is open to the public. You can key in and also verify. We have other technologies which are already common, like your mass, which you use to check for other pharmaceutical products. And just like what Emily said, Nigeria is among NAFDAC is among the country in the ML3 maturity level, as signified by the WHO global benchmarking. So that is it. We have a whole lot, but let me just stop at this for now.
That's really interesting. I think to summarize, you mentioned that there is an electronic portal where people who are seeking to register their products can apply. You've mentioned that you have tools to go for post-market surveillance to identify substandard product. Does this extend to devices as well as medicines, or is it just for medicines?
No, it extends to medical device too. I talked about scan. We use it mainly for post-marketing surveillance. So, and it's very active. It is working. We can use it to dictate substandard, because it is an issue for medical device. Just like when you said in your intro, it feels funny when you have your blood monitoring device and it's giving you a wrong reading. So we have deployed all these technologies to help make our processes a bit better. I will say that we are not there, but each day we get better.
Excellent. You know, one thing I want to highlight, because I like when you highlighted a problem. You said when they import and they bring it to you, you register. But then there are lots of people that are not doing that. And these products are getting into the hospitals, they're getting into the hands of patients, they're getting to the pharmacies, people are buying them, and they're unregistered. So I think that might be a good place to start to think about a solution where there's a problem. NAFDAC not being able to nab the importers or to do something about how the entry of the product. And I think maybe you can start with that, and then we'll move to Dr. Aisha to just speak maybe from an innovator side perspective about why would an innovator think of going into that space to build something and proposing it in NAFTA? What would it cost them? So let's start from you. Let's finish off with you there. What is that thing? But as a person who's worked there and has faced this challenge, I'm sure you probably thought with your colleagues, if we only had this device that doesn't exist, or maybe exists somewhere else, maybe we would nab this, we would nip this in the bud, or this solution, or this way that patients can report. Because our topic also covers oversight. Is this how do you think? How have you thought about addressing that problem of the parallel imports that do not come through NAFTA but are on the market?
Okay, in that aspect, we have collaborations with other sister agencies because it's not only NAFDAC at the ports. We have customs there and we have our other sister agencies. So there's a lot of collaboration going on. And right now we have the single window portal where you can get your e-registration, especially for importers. So because of this collaboration now, there's more shared information among these agencies that are strictly involved in importation or that stay at the borders. So in this way, we are able to curtail the influx of these medical devices which are not registered. So it's all about collaboration, which we have a very robust collaboration with our sister agencies at the ports.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think when I listen to you, I hear that there's collaboration, but we know we live in Nigeria. We know that there are gaps. Something isn't working where either they are not reporting or they are reporting and it's not being handled. There's a gap. There's something wrong there. And I'm thinking on my feet, what is that solution? Is there something? Is there some scanner? I'm just thinking out loud,
Yeah,
like, what
yeah,
is that solution?
you're right. We have the GSI also. I didn't talk about it. We have the GSI track and trace system, which we also use to track some of these devices. You understand, when they get into Nigeria. These are just all digital innovations that we have come up with in NAFDAC. But I don't really want to take other people's time by going into detail explaining this. So we do, and like I said, we also do post-marketing surveillance. From time to time we keep checking for these products, and of course because of course there will be defaulters, and now we have stiffer penalties for defaulters. So it has really helped to curtail a lot, because that when you default, you're going to face this music. You can be jailed, you can equally pay fine, a heavy fine. So it has really, really helped to curtail a lot of these discrepancies you see.
Well, thank you so much. I think, as I hear that, clearly, across Africa, Nigeria, there is that problem where somehow the regulators, some products get past the regulators, and despite everything that you've shared that you're doing, it's happening. So I think I would want to move on to Dr. Aisha to speak about just, while I know this is not your turf, you're not a device regulator or seeking regulation per se, but from your perspective, because I know one of the key things that any innovator will think about first is, what's in it for me? What are the cost barriers or cost implications to building a solution? For instance, something for the guys at the customs to use at the ports to report digitally. Yeah, and what would need to be true for a digital innovator to consider building such solutions for a regulatory agency?
Thank you so much, Tosin. And I think it's been really insightful hearing from Dr. Emil and also that representative. I actually do interact with regulators because a lot of equipment at Helport is internationally sourced and thereby shipped into Nigeria. And I think that created a first-hand experience as to what does it take to actually bring equipment into country. And as we also thought about local assembly of equipment or even local manufacturing, it's a different order entirely. I would say that the picture of healthcare in Africa really does rely on our ability to innovate and to collaborate. And as we collaborate, I think emphasis on sustainability and transparency of practices becomes very, very essential. We do have systems in place, and we, as an entity at HealthWatch, was not relying on industry experts, people that have done this before in Nigeria. There are a lot of other things that we would have missed and that would not know that exists out there for either regulation or even frameworks how to approach hospitals and engage partners. So it gets very expensive in that introductory phase where you are learning, what does clearing look like. And I would assume that for a whole lot of other African countries, the same might be true in that the systems can be so fragmented that you do not know where to start, and you end up spending twice the amount. So for us to import, typically those start off with OEM partners for us here, where we are assessing what kind of certifications does this equipment already have. Do they have ISO standards, kind of preparing the framework for us, registering the equipment once it gets back. And then the next piece is the Standard Organization of Nigeria, which is an entity that we have now interacted with very often in terms of international inspections. So if a product hasn't been in Nigeria before, then we have international bodies that can actually come out to the site of manufacturing abroad, have this equipment certified, and then we use that certification process in an NAFDAC process as well. So quite an expensive process. As an innovator, I think part of what we would like to see is how can we redesign these toolbox and processes in such a way that when someone has this idea and wants to get into market, the gray areas are limited in what needs to be done. So I think defaulters are a lot of them. They exist. Oftentimes not intentional. We don't know, what's happening on the NAFDAC side of things. We don't know what's happening on the IT side of things. And information and policy building is thereby happening in silos where we're leaving out important players. So a process where we're connecting all the stakeholders and we're engaging all the stakeholders in the policy development and innovation development, I think will be really crucial in saving those startup costs, encouraging innovators to actually participate in this space. The ease of doing business in Africa is not there. So it takes God, it takes effort, it takes really being obsessed about your solution to want to do this, and of course creating a template where there's also data to prove that what you're proposing to be done can be done well and can actually affect the health indices that we have in Nigeria.
Thank you so much. That's such a brilliant submission, especially on when you want to innovate. So NAFDAC is building a website to accept applications and whatnot. Who was in the room when it was decided how that website should flow, right? And how often this is just take home for NAFDAC? How often are you engaging the users to find out how easy is it to use this platform? What are the complications? What are the challenges? I think that's sort of what she's bringing up here, where on NAFDAC's side, or from NAFDAC's perspective, we've simplified it. It's easy, it's beautiful. From the user's perspective, it's not exactly that way. So I think that what we need is some kind of forum that is led by the regulator to get the right people in the room periodically and get feedback. This can be digitally enabled, so it can be a simple platform where certain key stakeholders are invited periodically to share, and NAFDAC actually takes the feedback and redesigns, like you've said, the processes, or continues or has the mindset of continuous redesign, so that it keeps getting better, because nothing will ever be the best. It can always get better. So yeah, I think that's what I'm taking away from you, that there's need here for stakeholder mapping. Who should be there when we're deciding, and then setting up fora for conversation, for feedback, especially on the user side. I think this happens a lot more in the private sector. If I built a solution, I'm constantly wanting to know what my customers think. Where it's a regulator, government agency, private sector relationship, that it doesn't really exist as much, I think, in general, even outside of healthcare. But that's something to think about. Where is that opportunity between the public and the regulator to understand what works best? That friendly, cordial environment for collaboration and exchange. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think another thing I'd like to know is, with the work that you've done so far, are there lots of opportunities for funding innovations in this space that you're aware of? How easy is it to access funding? Who's going to tell us a bit about that, and what you think about getting donor interest in that space. What would need to be true?
Yeah, I do think that for innovators in this space, we started off from the space of cost. What does it actually cost for you to get this things done? Is to think of modular designs. What's the easiest go-to-market products that you can have? The same way that we are asking that policies should engage innovators, or policymakers should engage innovators, the same way we're saying that digital health providers should engage the actual end users, the clinicians that would use it, and the patients that would end up benefiting from it. So as we put that process in place to ensure that there is a cyclic flow in how we're engaging policy, we're instituting changes, we're saving costs because affordability, especially when we operate in Africa, becomes very important, where majority of patients are paying out of pocket. It becomes very important that your processes are as simple as possible and has opportunities to layer on improvement. To be able to actually do this and do it well to the point of engaging international donors, having that government relationship then becomes important. I think a lot of us do shy away from working with governments because it's such a convoluted process. There are many bureaucratic layers that you have to go through. The website says one thing, and then you get into the office, and then it's 5 different doors that you have to knock on before you find the one answer that you're looking for. But I don't think that that should be a deterrent for innovators because it is essential to engage the government partners for a few reasons. One, they do have access to their population. They have access to a lot of other smaller engagements that they have instituted that maybe is working or not working well, but that would be a good space for the innovator to layer on so that you can have better outcomes and quick market access. Now, when we talk about the goal funders, there is funding, but this funding also look for how engaged with the government is your solution, because the international donor also wants to see what's the best way to make impact in a scalable way, right? So that you're not necessarily burning through funds. You have quick access to hospitals and your actual end users, and that there is transparency in collaborative work on the government side, right? So governments also do get funding from these international bodies. And when we do that public-private partnership, then we can now have a synergistic approach to what that innovation would look like. So layering your innovation on existing solutions that the government is engaging in is one good way to quickly reach those last mile areas versus shying away from them. It also helps reduce the hesitancy on the user end of things, where they're sometimes used to their legacy system, and if someone is not introducing what the alternative is in a right approach, probabilities are you would hit a roadblock from that. So funding exists. Let's align it with what the SDG goals are, align it with health indices in the local context, and also engage government partners.
Thank you so much, so much. That was some great input. I think as we wrap up this question, I have a question I'd like Dr. Anyakara to help us just put together, which is, as we've come to realize, it looks like there's need for that forum for exchange, for collaboration, for communication between regulators, innovators, and whatnot. How do we make that happen? What needs to happen for that, for us to have that in place, practically speaking?
Oh, thank you so much. First of all, let me correct the introduction you made on me. I am not a clinician. I'm a professor of pharmaceutical chemistry. So I've been in the pharmaceutical sector for a while. I was in the university system, and then I headed USP in Nigeria. There we did a lot for manufacturers, for regulators in the sector. And in the past 5 years, I've been leading Bloom Public Health, which is really innovative in Africa, trying to mobilize African talent to support African problems in the public health space. So we are now operating in 7 countries in Africa. So having said that, I've been very much involved in this space. Firstly, medical devices, I mean, it's like it's still emerging. Also, I like where Emile put it, it's quite a complex sector, and it ranges from very simple thing to, it's not like, it's quite a wide range. So far, it's going very well. And also the NAFDAC lady, she spoke very well about this. There's still a gap. A gap is that there is no interaction. There is no platform where people look at each other and see how do we solve a problem. End of the day, we are focusing on public health. How do we make sure that the patient that needs this gets it? So the era of regulator being a policeman, trying to police the implementers is gone. It's time of collaboration. So the point of being in the same room is happening more and more now, even though it's not moving at the pace it should move at, but still that's the future. And with this digital innovations, it makes it easy. So everybody plays a role. How do we pull everybody together? Sometimes you can initiate a discussion beyond what the regulator is trying to do by bringing up a topic that can be pulled into it. But certainly, my suggestion is that this kind of forum, this kind of conference, initiate that discussion that goes beyond this particular conference. The regulators, the implementers, the users, everybody, the supply chain experts, we need to interact, we need to have a kind of honest discussions and see, is there a way to improve? And that's the only way to go. It has to be initiated spontaneously. So I'm hoping that after this event, somebody will reach out to Chukube and interrogate some things he said. And I heard her saying some things about the timeline. Perhaps if, I don't know, whoever that is been involved in it, see that the timeline is not really practical, it's not real. In that interrogation will make her see, okay, it's true, what do we do? Basically, I like the interaction. So the summary for me, because of time, is that we're making progress, we're not there yet. The platform to put people together is going to be spontaneous like this. It could be just a tweet away, and then of course that should continue from there. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think I like that, that thought process of how this already is starting the conversation, and we can drive it ourselves. If you're working in that space, you're passionate, this is an opportunity to speak to the regulator you've been introduced and say, let's work together and get it done. So yeah, that's brilliant. I think the next question, I want to move to a different question for Farm Oluchi of Smart Farm. And the question is, how can digital reporting tools empower providers and patients to report adverse effects or device malfunctions directly to regulatory bodies? I think this is really key, like a key piece that maybe we haven't figured out, maybe I'm not aware of the solution that is involving the end user, the member of the public who got a wrong reading. I'll give an example before she goes ahead. When I was practicing traditionally as a pharmacist, the lady walked in to check her blood glucose, and I think it read 30 milligram per DL. And I thought, how is she standing here? And we looked at the device, and I think eventually it was the battery. So it wasn't a device malfunction, but if you've lived in Nigeria long enough, you have experienced, whether you know it or not, a medical device malfunction. Recently was my daughter's PCV, where on one day she had abnormally high amount of red blood cells, and the next day in another facility she was anemic. And then we're like, what do we do? And because I'm her mom and I'm medically inclined, I know what this means. And I'm thinking, what happens to the layman? How do we empower the layman to be part of the process where they can give feedback digitally? And I think digital tools are the answer. So let me leave it to Dr. Odichi to take this on.
Thank you, Tosin. It's actually Farm Oluchi. Thank you for the opportunity to grace this platform and to speak after wonderful, great thought leaders. Yeah, to also, I think for our audience, who do not really understand how medication malfunction or errors from medical devices can actually is actually a huge medical problem. So based off of what you said, it's good enough that or it's bad enough that it was just the story you just shared, the lady's glucose level. It could even cause more serious situations where the life of the patient involved is threatened, life-threatening situations. And at the end of the day, when medical devices malfunction, and say for instance a hypertensive person who is using a wrong device, and he keeps getting, oh, your blood pressure is normal, when the blood pressure is actually elevated, and he thinks that okay, he's fine, and his blood pressure can take him unawares, and some cardiovascular accidents can happen, right? So we are very used to just medications, adverse reactions from medications, but medical devices, I don't think enough is said about the dangers of malfunctioning medical devices due to poorly produced medical devices. Right. So I'll answer your question based off of two things: assumptions that we have robust working frameworks or tools that exist in Nigeria. Like we know, okay, these frameworks or digital tools are, they exist, and that the fact that the medical device malfunction and reporting it is huge enough problem for all stakeholders involved to actually tackle this problem and provide working solution that is accessible to everyone. So I would say that for when it comes to reporting tools that will empower healthcare providers, right? It's very important because it's going to provide direct communication. These tools were in the fourth industrial revolution, where everything is digital, Internet of Things, and all that. So it's going to be important because reporting medical device malfunctions instantly would ensure timely communication between the person reporting, be it a healthcare professional, or the person on the other end with the regulatory bodies, right? It's going to provide instant and timely communication for the regulatory bodies to see what's going on real time. And also it was also going to help them to get real time data collection to know when assuming their products that are in the database of NAFDAC, which is the body that is responsible for medical device regulation. And also it ensures when a properly functioning tools are involved, it also ensures patient safety and general public health protection, and ensures regulatory compliance, right? So these tools are very, very important. It's interesting that NAFDAC is just the only body, handling this, and is summed up under pharmacovigilance, right? Most healthcare professionals, to surprise you, you usually by default think that pharmacovigilance is solely for reporting ADR, adverse drug reactions, right? But it's also very key for reporting medical device malfunction, and is summed up on under pharmacovigilance. For strategies, that could help, to solve this problem, because it's a huge problem in our field, right? I would think that we need a top bottom approach, right? And also, for me, the one that is very key to me is interoperability. I think NAVDAC is operating in silo, right? It's operating on its own. It's a huge agency and a lot is happening. And but more can be done, as the lady the doctor confirmed. More can be done. There's room for more to be done, right? So I think there's need for interoperability between the regulatory body, in this case NAFDAC, and other involved stakeholders, be it private or public. We can start with public, such as the Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria, in charge of the pharmacies in Nigeria, even NMA. So they could, join hands together with NAFDAC leading the team and, come up with solutions and implement them, to help when it comes, not just because our focus has been solely on medications, right? To help with, addressing medical device malfunctions. Then, and also, if possible, find a way to incentivize every other person that is involved in this chain, right? Incentivization is not always monetary, right? It can also be recognition or certification for individuals and institutions that actively participate in reporting um, um, medical device malfunction. And also, when building solutions, build solutions that are um, user friendly. So currently, although she didn't speak to it, NAFDAC has for you to report medical device malfunctions, they have a yellow form and also have a digital form that you can fill online, and or you fill the physical form which you have to go collect from their office, or you fill or you download a medical app. For me, if you ask me from a user point of view, I will not download a medical reporting app just for reporting, which is something that can be a one-off. So I think digital solutions, every stakeholder involved should come together and look for very user-friendly solutions that are digital based, that can be easy to be used by users who are the primary people that come in contact with this um, problem. And also another way is to also collaborate with mobile network providers. Is a digital way to collaborate with them, to send SMS or notifications to targeted demographics and raise awareness of the reporting tool, right? So beyond what is on ground is not efficient currently, and I know there is room for improvement to ensure that user friendly digital solutions are provided that can enhance reporting of medical device malfunction. And yeah, I was speaking on incentivizing, yes, also incentivize, and then partnership, educational campaigns, healthcare provider training, healthcare professionals who are in, say for instance, pharmacists, community pharmacists, pharmacies and pharmacists who are at the grassroots level, who communicate with patients, right? Train them if it means putting up an advert. Oh, if you have your medical device, although it's very tricky because pharmacy business owners might think could he send the wrong, they might have the fear of, could he send the wrong message out to the person buying the medication that we have a problem with our medical devices. But I think there's a way around it that healthcare providers across board can be encouraged to blow the trumpet about how to, for users who are the persons who are in direct contact with this problem, to come up and say, okay, this is the problem I encountered with my medical device, what can be done, how do I go about it? Because believe you me, a lot of people, I know of somebody that bought 3 glucometers. They're all functioning, but because of one thing or the other, to the best of my knowledge, I think some of them had were not up to standard. So he kept on buying and buying and buying and buying until he finally bought one that could work. And there was nothing he could do. He couldn't report the malfunction. He returned it back to the pharmacy. They said, oh, you've tampered with XYZ, and that nothing could be done. Right. So I think these solutions are profiled as strategies. And also in contribution with what my other panelists said, if we adopt these things together, especially what Prof said, right? I think this problem, enough light to be shown on it that a change can actually be effected. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think what I've taken away as a key point is in whatever solutions that we're building, because you mentioned NAFDAC has an app for reporting, for instance, and it's supposed to empower the provider or the patient, as the case may be. Let's build something that's super accessible. When you think about the thought process of a patient, will I download an app just to tell NAFDAC about this one thing one time? Or should it be web-based, something that's a website with an adaptable page for mobile where I can easily complain? so that people are not. Although it's fine, I think it's fine whether it lands up on Twitter, which is what everyone prefers. Thinking through that process thoroughly, and then you mentioned another point about information, communication, training, ensuring that the healthcare providers especially know that it exists and know to use it and are incentivized in some way. You can be some kind of incentive around education points for your continuous education or something. I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely some thinking to do there on how to ensure that information is out there, continuously out there. Maybe even through the continuous education programs that do exist for doctors, pharmacists, nurses, just finding an avenue to get the word out about the availability of these programs, and then the and how to use them, and then also giving opportunities for feedback to improve the accessibility on those platforms. So thank you so much. I'll be moving on to another question, and this is for Emil. How can digital solutions support regulatory training? So this is just a build on from what we're saying. How can the solutions support training and capacity building efforts across African countries, particularly for medical device and pharmaceutical oversight?
Thanks, Tosin. I hope you can hear me. I've had some technical issues. Look, I think it's a great question, right? But I'm not sure everyone's going to like my answer, right? So, look, a ELMS platform, electronic learning management system platform, it's been commoditized, right? They are phenomenal platforms, great platforms. We've had a look at various different ones. There's open source ones like Moodle. There's more intuitive ones like the Learn Worlds, etc. That's not where we need to innovate, right? In this space. For me, when we look at this, there are at least three significant problems to solve, right? And I believe there's a number of innovators on here. So this is where we're also trying to focus here, because I see this as a significant opportunity to systematically strengthen our healthcare systems, right? By more robust sort of and more innovative approaches to how we educate and build our capabilities, right? So, but let's just face facts quickly, right? We have significant capacity challenges, right? That we have to bear in mind, right? A beautiful app is not going to solve the fact that we don't have enough pharmacists, we don't have enough people in our regulators, we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough nurses and healthcare educators, community educators. So let's just bear that in mind, because we need to solve for that as well. When it comes to education and sort of building our competence systematically, we've got a content challenge as well, right? We've had a good look. How do I build capabilities in my organization? How do I try and build capability within GlaxoSmithKline, right? There's great content to learn how to basically do things for the FDA and the European regulator, etc., right? There's very little that teaches ourselves in an intuitive way what we need to know, right? Because yes, some of our regulators rely to these global bodies, national stringent regulatory authorities. So we've got a content problem, and we need to fix that as well. And then basically, I think we've got an approach problem as well, right? The interventions I see and come across, or my team engages in, and my ex-teams used to engage in, they're very ad hoc. It's a workshop here. It's a course there. It's a conference over time, right? So I think those are some of the key challenges, right, that I see sort of in this education space: content, capacity that we need to just think about, and then sort of stronger community, and then of practitioners, and then basically building our competence in a more structured way.
Thank you so much. I love how you drill it down to our reality, where we're not just simply saying, "Oh, there's this solution there, let's adopt it." But I like the human element to it, and it's something I thought about coming into this conversation. How sometimes people just think once we bring the technology, then everything is fine, but it's not, because we need the people to use it, to implement it, and where there are no healthcare practitioners, especially with the recent brain drain, where there are where there are there's insufficient manpower on the regulator side, how do we need to solve those problems, because technology cannot solve them just by itself. So I think it's great that we're thinking very practically about these. I think a follow-up question to that would be
Sorry, Justin, the time for the session is running out. Sorry to interrupt.
mhm,
If you could please just
all
round
right.
up in about a minute or two. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I thought we had an hour 30 minutes, and it's an hour 10 now, so we have 20 minutes left, right? I was watching the time. Is that okay?
Okay.
Or you like us to wrap up right away? Yeah, I was actually keeping my eye on the clock. Okay, so let's just maybe take one more, and then I can wrap up the submissions from everyone. Okay, so Emil, I think we were. I was going to do a follow up on this. So, do you know of any examples that are practical for us available today that you can share? Um, Emil?
Um, Look, I mean, obviously, you could. I mean, it's not significant in terms of the types of education of innovation, right? So people that want to build capacity and capability in this space, there are tertiary institutions, a diploma, a master's. Basically, that's it's also obviously critical in terms of the learning journey. Um, there are very few African focused ones. Here and there, people get a grant and they build something. South Africa recently built some nice content around pharmacovigilance and pharmacovigilance training and surveillance training. But that's the point I'm trying to make, those. And it's very few and far between. People can go to organizations such as, so there's websites with good content, video, etc. You've got TOPRA, you've got RAPS, I think, the Regulatory Affairs Professional body. They've got a bit of content, but it's not focused on our realities, right? So there is a significant gap, and hence amongst innovators, there's a significant opportunity, right? Let's go and fill it. Let's go and meet that need. That's basically what I'm saying.
All right, thank you so much. As we run out of time, I think I'd like to just try to summarize what we have discussed here so that there's like a logical end to this session. We've identified clearly the importance of medical device regulation and pharmaceutical oversight. It can't be overemphasized. At the beginning of any kind of medical intervention, some device is involved in the process. In the middle and at the end, somehow we're interacting with devices. So it's really important that we're ensuring that that only quality devices are on the market and available. It's going to require a combination of technology and non-technology elements from what we have discussed now to make this happen. We've identified that there are gaps, so regulators are doing what they can, that there are existing global frameworks for checking, what each country has reached in terms of their standards with quality and regulation. So it's good that those frameworks exist for thinking, and we can take a stop at 5 years from now and see how well is Nigeria doing versus where we were today, or any country in Africa. So it's great that we have that. We've identified the need for collaboration between regulators and end users, regulators and practitioners, innovators, and how that needs to be the circle that makes the decisions, and how there needs to be an avenue for continuous improvement on whatever innovations are being designed. And I think Emil mentioned that we don't just go say, oh, take this ad hoc thing, do it once, and that's it. Innovation will be required, and continuous improvement will be required in order for the solution that we have come up with at any time to remain relevant. Yeah, so it's been really great listening. I've learned a lot, honestly, especially from the regulatory side about what's available in Africa, in Nigeria in particular, on the device and other aspects. It's interesting to hear, interesting to learn about the gaps, and good material to go think about. In what ways all of us can be part of the solutions. What are the barriers, and what are the things that we can do to ensure that this very important aspect of regulation is continues to improve and continues to get better. So thank you so much. Thank Thank you again to all the panelists for your contributions and the audience for being part of this important conversation. We look forward to seeing the continued impact of these innovations and these conversations, and I hope that today's conversation, as Dr. Anyapura has suggested, will inspire new partnership ideas and solutions. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. I think we're closing the conference soon. Yes, I hope
Yes,
everyone has
thank you
enjoyed it.
so much. That was an incredible session. Thank you so much. Our panelists really highlighted how important digital tools are for strengthening the regulation of medical devices, from the processes of reporting medical device malfunction to regulating the importation of medical devices. And I loved one panelist emphasized the importance of interoperability across organizations like NAFDAC to ensure the reporting of medical device malfunction, and also intensifying the usage of platforms for medical device malfunction reporting. So that was incredible. Thank you so much for this conversation. It's very important for health and for public safety. So thank you so much to all of our panelists, for Tosin, for being such a great moderator. Thank you so much,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. It's lovely to speak to you today. Have a wonderful
Thank you.
weekend.
Everyone, nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank
So
you.
that brings us to the end of day 2 of the RegTech Africa Digital Health Conference. Thank you so much to our speakers, our panelists, our sponsors, and most importantly to all of you, the attendees, for being with us throughout, for the incredible sessions we had yesterday, for today as well. Thank you so much for making this event a success. Remember, all participants will get a certificate of participation at the end. So it's been an incredible session. Over the last 2 days, we've connected with incredible minds, shared valuable insights, and discussed solutions that will shape the future of healthcare in Africa. And to round up finally and close the day, we're going to have the chair of the organizing committee of this conference, Mr. Cyril Okorogwe, to give us the closing remarks. Thank you.